Have you ever stopped to think what's really powering the fastest corners of the decentralized world? Or how a digital currency might actually reshape how you use everyday services? Today, we're doing a deep dive into Solana, or SOL. It's a blockchain platform that's, well, it's been making some serious waves lately. We've got a fresh stack of sources right here covering just the last week, June 21st to June 27th, 2025. And our mission, like always, is to cut through the noise. We'll sift through the facts, pull out the really important stuff, and give you that shortcut to being, properly informed without drowning in information.
Yeah, and what's really interesting in here, setting the stage, isn't just the recent price action, which has been pretty eye-catching. It's also the fundamental tech innovations happening and just how fast its whole ecosystem is expanding. We're going to try and connect the dots for you between the core tech, the applications building on it, and what that could all mean down the road.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our sources are pretty clear. Solana showed significant strength this past week. How significant are we really talking here?
Well, if you look at the numbers in the executive summary and market performance,
Yeah.
bits of our sources, Solana's token, SOL, it had a definite double-digit price increase. Specifically, its value went up somewhere between 11% and 17% just in those 7 days.
11 to 17% in a week. That's quite a move.
It is. At the time of the report, it was trading, pretty steadily between $143 and $153. So, yeah, that kind of jump really reflects, I think, growing investor confidence. And it seems tied to strong underlying network activity, too.
Right, so it's not just speculation driving it. The network itself is busy. What kind of activity are we seeing?
Exactly. The reports point to consistently high transaction volumes, real usage, and significant activity on decentralized exchanges, the DEXs. It suggests a broad base of users are actually interacting with Solana.
Okay, high usage, DX activity.
And here's something really compelling. The revenue. For the second quarter in a row, application revenue on the Solana network topped $1 billion.
Wait, say that again? $1 billion in revenue from apps on the network.
$1 billion. 2 quarters running. That's actual revenue generated by the applications people are building and using on Solana.
That's staggering. So what does that kind of sustained revenue really tell us about the network's health? And crucially, its stability, especially given, some past bumps in the road.
That's a key question. The revenue number, it absolutely highlights the economic energy there. Developers aren't just experimenting. They're building real, profitable applications. And on the stability point, maybe the most impressive thing in the sources is the uptime. Solana has maintained 100% uptime for over 15 months now.
15 months straight, no outages.
15 months. It shows the network has really matured. Those earlier stability issues, it looks like the fixes and improvements have really worked. That kind of reliability is, well, it's everything for building trust with users and developers, right? You need that solid foundation.
Absolutely. Trust is paramount. Okay, so solid stability, real economic activity. This brings us to the tech. The really interesting part, what makes Solana tick. Let's start with proof of history. POH. Sounds not complex.
It sounds complex, but the core idea is actually quite clever. POH is Solana's main innovation. But here's the key.
Right.
It's not a consensus mechanism itself. It doesn't decide if a transaction is valid. Think of it more like a cryptographic clock.
A clock.
Yeah. What POH does is it timestamps transactions before they even get bundled into a block. It creates this verifiable chronological sequence of events.
Okay, so it orders everything up front.
Exactly. On many blockchains, validators spend time arguing about the order. POH provides the order beforehand. This means validators can then process these already ordered transactions in parallel at the same time rather than one after another. And that is what dramatically increases the speed, the throughput, and reduces the waiting time, the latency. It's why Solana can hit those, thousands, even tens of thousands of transactions per second.
That makes sense. Pre-ordering the work allows for parallel processing. Ingenious. But they're not stopping there, are they? Our sources mentioned something called Firedancer. What's the story with that? Why is it a big deal?
Right, Firedancer. This is potentially huge for Solana's future. It's a completely new, independent validator client. It's being built by Jump Crypto, a big name in the space, and it's written in C++A, which is known for, raw speed and efficiency.
A second validator client made by someone else.
Yes, and that's important for decentralization, which we can get back to. But the performance focus is key. Firedancer uses this modular architecture they call tiling. Basically, it allows different validator tasks like handling transactions or verifying proofs to run on separate CPU cores simultaneously. Think extreme parallelization within the validator itself.
So even more parallel processing, what kind of speeds are we talking about?
Well, get this. In test environments, Firedancer has apparently processed over 1 million transactions per second.
1 million TPS. Seriously.
Seriously. Now, that's a test environment, but still, it's orders of magnitude beyond most other blockchains. But like I said, it's not just speed. Having a second, really high-performance client developed independently from Solana Labs that massively boosts the network's resilience and decentralization, it means the network isn't reliant on just one piece of software. If one client has a bug, the network can keep running on the other. It's a huge step for robustness.
Okay, wow. Million TPS potential, more decentralization. With that kind of engine, it's no wonder stuff is getting built on Solana. Let's talk about the ecosystem. DePIN and DeFi seem to be buzzing.
They really are. Let's start with DePIN, decentralized physical infrastructure networks. Solana has sort of become the go-to platform for these. And it makes sense, right? These projects often involve tons of small transactions, micropayments, constant data updates from real-world devices. Solana's speed and low fees are perfect for that.
So give us some examples. What kind of physical infrastructure are we talking about?
Okay, so you've got projects like Helium, HNT. They're building decentralized wireless networks for IoT devices, even 5G. People run hotspots, earn tokens.
Like crowdsourced connectivity.
Exactly. Then there's HiveMapper, Honey Thumb Y. That's a decentralized mapping project. People collect street-level map data with dash cams, earn tokens, competing with, Google Maps. You also have Render Network, Render, which is a decentralized network for GPU power graphic rendering for artists' studios. And a newer one, IO.net. IO focused specifically on decentralized GPU networks for AI and machine learning, which is obviously a huge area right now.
It's fascinating, using blockchain to coordinate real-world hardware and services. Okay, and what about the finance side, DeFi?
Solana's DeFi scene is definitely thriving.
Yeah.
The total value locked, or TVL, basically the amount of money deposited in its DeFi protocols, is over $8.5 billion, according to our sources.
$8.5 billion. So where's that value concentrated?
Well, the DX's decentralized exchanges are huge. You hear names like Jupiter, Orca, Radium. They often handle more trading volume daily than even Ethereum's DXs.
Really? More volume than Ethereum sometimes.
Yeah, the speed and low fees make them really attractive for traders. Then there's liquid staking. Protocols like Marinate Finance and Jito let you stake your SOL to help secure the network, but you get a liquid token back. You can then use that token in other DeFi protocols, lending, borrowing, yield farming, so your staked capital isn't just locked up, it improves capital efficiency.
Got it. So you earn staking rewards and potentially more yield elsewhere.
Precisely. And then you have the lending and borrowing platforms themselves, like Camino Finance and Solent, which are quite popular for borrowing against your assets or lending them out. It's a really vibrant, interconnected DeFi ecosystem.
Okay, so the tech is advancing, the ecosystem's booming in areas like DePIN and DeFi. With all this going on, what are the experts predicting for Solana's price and future, say, for 2025?
Well, as you'd probably guess, opinions are varied. Our sources show a really wide range of predictions for 2025. Some are quite conservative, maybe projecting SOL around $135, sort of maintaining current levels or slightly dipping. But then you have some very bullish calls predicting it could go as high as $1,000.
Wow, $135 to $1,000. That's a massive spread. What's driving that super optimistic $1,000 view?
The bullish case really hinges on a few key things. First, institutional interest. There's a lot of talk about a potential Solana ETF getting approved. That's seen as a huge potential catalyst, opening the door for big institutional money to flow in easily.
Right, like we saw with Bitcoin ETFs.
Exactly. And crucially, the sources mentioned the possibility of a Solana ETF including staking. That would let ETF holders earn yield, which the current Bitcoin and Ether ETFs don't offer. That could make it way more attractive.
Yield-bearing ETF, that would be different.
Big difference. Second, just continued ecosystem growth. If DePIN and DeFi keep expanding, if more developers keep building, that creates fundamental demand for SOL. And third, those tech upgrades we talked about, especially Firedancer. If it delivers on its promise, that improved performance could attract even more activity.
Makes sense. But what about the other side? The more cautious or even bearish outlook? What are the concerns holding back those predictions?
Yeah, the caution comes from a few places. One is just the memory of past network stability issues. Even with the 15-month perfect uptime, those past outages still linger as a concern for some investors. Perception takes time to change.
Understandable. What else?
Competition. It's fierce out there.
Yeah.
You've got Ethereum, which is still the giant, constantly upgrading with layer 2s and other improvements, plus other fast layer 1s, layer 2s. Everyone's fighting for developers and users. Solana needs to keep innovating just to stay ahead.
It's definitely a competitive space.
And finally, just broader factors. Macroeconomics, interest rates, recession fears, and regulatory uncertainty. Those things can impact the whole crypto market, including Solana, regardless of its own progress.
Okay, so bringing this all together, what's the overall road ahead look like? Navigating these opportunities, the potential ETF, the competition, the path to mainstream adoption.
Looking ahead, that potential Solana ETF really does seem like the biggest near-term factor to watch. It could be a major game changer for demand, like we discussed. But thinking longer term, Solana's success really depends on its ecosystem continuing to grow and, importantly, demonstrating real-world utility. The progress in DePIN and DeFi is a very strong sign of that. Seeing developers actively choose to build on Solana is also critical.
So ecosystem adoption is key.
Absolutely. That's what drives sustainable value. Of course, the challenges remain. It has to maintain that network stability and security record, no more major outages. And it needs to keep differentiating itself from the competition, leveraging its speed and low cost. But honestly, considering its strong tech foundation with POH and Firedancer, its rapidly growing ecosystem, and that increasing institutional interest, Solana seems really well positioned. It has a serious shot at becoming a leading platform for decentralized apps and maybe even a core piece of the next internet infrastructure.
What an incredible deep dive. Okay, so you should now have a really solid grasp of Solana's recent momentum, the tech like proof of history and the potential of Firedancer, those exciting DePIN and DeFi applications, and what the experts are thinking about its future.
Yeah, we've seen how that mix of speed, low cost, and growing real-world use is really turning heads from everyday users to big institutions.
Yeah.
Even while, it still has to manage those challenges like past perceptions and tough competition, it really shows how fast this space moves.
Definitely. So as you digest all that, here's something to chew on. Given Solana's focus on speed and these real-world DePIN applications, think wireless, mapping, AI compute, how might its evolution actually change how you interact with those kinds of services day to day? What does truly decentralized infrastructure feel like? It's just one example of the kind of insights we unpack here at the Deep Dive. If you enjoyed this journey into Solana, imagine getting this kind of focused knowledge, cutting through the clutter in just 10 or 15 minutes on other important topics. To make sure you never miss these shortcuts to being well-informed, just hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening. We're always diving into new sources, pulling out the key takeaways for you. Until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and stay well-informed.